applicability of interpreter pattern. Use the interpreter pattern when there is a language to interpret, and you can represent statements in the language as a abstract syntax tree. The interpreter pattern works best when the grammar is simple. That means for complex grammar, the class hierarchy for the grammar becomes larger and unmanageable. So in this case, we are going to use this interpreter, and we are going to applicable this. And in that case, we are going to applicable this interpreter pattern. And the next one, efficiency is not a critical concern. That means the most efficient interpreters are usually not implemented by interpreting parts tree directly, but by first translating them into another form. So in this case also, we are going to apply this interpreter. So we say mainly two applicability under applicability of a interpreter pattern. The first one is the grammar is simple, and the next one is efficiency is not a critical concern. So let's go with next template, that is nothing but structure. This is the structure of interpreter pattern that consists of abstract expressions, terminal expression, non-terminal expression, context, and client. What the client does? Client builds an abstract syntax tree representing a particular sentence in the language that the grammar defines. The abstract syntax tree is assembled from instance of the non-terminal expressions and terminal expression classes that invokes the interpreter operation. So what the context does is, context contains information that's global to the interpreter. Coming to the abstract expression. Abstract expression is nothing but a regular expression, which we have seen in our previous example. Abstract expression, we say that abstract expression is a regular expression that declares an abstract interpret operations that is common to all nodes in the abstract syntax tree. Coming to the terminals and non-terminals. Terminals means we say that literal expressions comes under terminals, and alternation expressions and repetition expressions and sequence expression, these three will comes under a non-terminal expressions. So in this terminal expression, we consists of this terminal expression implements an interpreter operation associated with terminal symbols in the grammar, and it's an instance that it requires for every terminal symbols in a sentence. Coming to the non-terminals, in this, one such class is required for every rule in the grammar. It maintains instance variables of the type abstract expression for the symbol, for each symbol, and it implements an interpreter operations for non-terminal symbols in the grammar. So based on this, we can find the, based on this structure, we can say the list of the participants are client, context, abstract expression, terminal expression, and non-terminal expression. These all will comes under as the participants in our structure. And let us see the next template. Our next template is collaboration. In this collaboration, it consists of 4 objects: client, non-terminal expression, terminal expression, and context use. In this, the client builds the sentence as an abstract syntax tree of non-terminal expressions and terminal expressions instance. Then the client initializes the context and invokes the interpreter operations. Each non-terminal expression node defines interpret in terms of interpret on each sub-expression. The interpret operation of each terminal expression defines the base case in the recursion. The interpret operation at each node uses the context to store and access the state of the interpreter. Coming to our next template is consequences. In these consequences, we speak about the advantages and disadvantages of our interpreter pattern. And the first one is, it is easy to change and extend the grammar. That means the pattern uses classes to represent grammar rules. You can use inheritance to change or extend the grammar. So we can say this is an advantage. Coming to our next consequences is, implementing the grammar is easy because classes defining nodes in the abstract syntax tree have similar implementations. So we can say this is also one of the advantages. Coming to our next consequences is, complex grammars are harder to maintain. So we say it's an disadvantages. The interpreter pattern defines at least one class for every rule in the grammar. In grammar containing many rules that can be hard to maintain and to manage. So we can say this maintaining of grammar is very hard. So we say this is one of the disadvantage. And coming to our next consequences is, adding a new way to interpret expression. Adding a new way to interpret expressions. So we say this is one of the advantage. In this, interpreter pattern makes it easy to evaluate an expression in a new way. So this is one of the advantage in our interpreter pattern. So easier to change and extend the grammar. Implementing grammar is easy, and in the same way complex grammars are harder to maintain, and adding a new way to interpret expressions. So these are the advantages and disadvantages that which will comes under the consequences of interpreter pattern. Coming to our next template is implementations. In this implementation, the interpreter and composite patterns share many implementation issues. In the first one is creating the abstract syntax tree. That means the interpreter pattern doesn't explain how to create an abstract syntax tree. So this is the one of the implementation. And the next one is defining the interpreter operations. In this, you don't have to define the interpreter operation in the expression classes. And the next one is sharing the terminal symbols. In this, we share the terminal symbols with the flyweight pattern. So in this grammars, whose sentence contains many occurrence of terminal symbol might benefit from sharing a single copy of the symbol. So these three are the implementations that which we can say under our interpreter pattern, or creating the abstract syntax tree, defining the interpreter operation, sharing the terminal symbols. Coming to our known uses for this interpreter pattern is, in this known uses we will speak the real-time examples for this interpreter pattern. In that, the first one is Python. Python uses the interpreter pattern to generate bytecode for a parse tree. And the next one is Inventor or VRML uses the interpreter pattern to render a graphical scenes in short 3D imaging. The next one is text editors and web browser. In this, text editors and web browsers use the interpreter pattern to lay out documents and check spellings. So these are the most three known uses, we can say most three real-time examples that where we are going to use this interpreter pattern. And the final one is related pattern. Coming to the related patterns, In this related pattern, we will speak about the 4 patterns that which will come under that which will say as a related pattern to our interpreter pattern. Those are composite, flyweight, iterator and visitor. And the first one is composite. In this, the abstract syntax tree is an instance of the composite pattern. And the next one is flyweight. In this flyweight, it shows how to share terminal symbols within the abstract syntax tree. So, the next one is iterator. The interpreter can use an iterator to traverse the structure. And the final pattern is visitor. It can be used to maintain the behavior in each node in the abstract syntax tree. So, these are the 4 related patterns that which we can say under our interpreter pattern. So, this is about related pattern. And so, this is about the interpreter pattern that which we can say under a behavioral pattern.